Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to AI for Transportation Professionals. This is our first in a series of workforce development courses, and we are really glad that you could all join us today. And I'm Julie Bond. I'm Program Director for the Transportation Options team at the Center for Urban Transportation Research, and we're located at the University of South Florida. So I'm going to open this session and introduce our instructors. And just so you know, we are recording today's session to offer convenient on-demand playback for you. Focusing on workforce development. They all have an AI theme, so that will be throughout each of these courses. The courses are taught each month through September, and you can sign up for one course or the entire series. We hope you'll join us for the series. The courses are free and provided through the Florida Department of Transportation's Public Transit Office. So let's take a look at the upcoming courses. First, we have Mobility on Demand on June 4th, and then First Mile, Last Mile Safety on July 2nd. And then next we have Transit Ridership on August 6th. And ending the series will be Micromobility on September 3rd. They're all from 1 o'clock to 2 p.m. And you can scan the course on the screen and register at no cost. So we hope you'll join us for the series. And then next, it's my pleasure to introduce our instructors today. So first we have Christine Epps, and she's the Training Support Specialist for the Transportation Options team at the Center for Urban Transportation Research. Christine has a bachelor's degree in Management Information Systems from USF, and she has extensive experience in software development, system design, project management, technical support, and research. So it'll be interesting to hear from her today. We're also excited to welcome Evan Fruehauf as our guest instructor today. He's an academic librarian and researcher at the University of South Florida. He has a passion for how people learn, create, and share knowledge. He holds a master's degree in library and information science, also from USF. His interests span artificial intelligence, which he'll talk about today, open access, and the evolving role of information in everyday life. So with that, I'm going to turn the time over to Christine. So Christine, take it away.
Awesome. Thank you, Julie. Appreciate you doing the introduction and welcome for us today. So want to welcome everyone who is attending today. And we're excited about this course, something new and exciting to delve into. Wanted to let you know a little bit about the objectives for today's course. First off, we're going to talk about AI fundamentals. So what is artificial intelligence anyway, and what can I get out of it? We want to find out how we can learn to ask AI effectively and get good results back from AI. So we're going to also use real-world transportation topics, and so we want you to delve into that. And we're going to learn especially about prompt strategies. So that is what you type into that AI queue and be able to get a good result. So I want to let you know that this is an interactive class. So I want you to go ahead and go to your internet browser and pull up another window and pull up your favorite AI tool. And we're going to talk about which ones there are. If you haven't used any before, we have some links for you to use. But if you have, go ahead and pull up your favorite tool, and we're going to use that later in the course. And I'm going to go ahead and put those in the chat now so you have those. So as we get started, let's do a poll. So get your phone out, or you can go to menti.com on your internet browser and type in the code. And we're going to ask you a few questions about your experience with AI. So go ahead and take a picture of that with your phone to get to the menti.com, and you'll be able to answer the questions coming up. So the first question, have you used AI for work? I want to differentiate that. That's not using it at home to come up with recipes or whatever, but have you used it at work? And we have some results coming in already. And this will give us a good idea of where everybody is in your use of AI and how far we need to delve in. Wow, it looks really even. So we have 2 for every day, 2 for once in a while, and 2 for not really. So for those of you who have used AI, at work, what have you used it to do? What tasks do you ask it to do? And you can type that in. So proofread or reword the text, filtering cab files. Okay. SQL, nice. SQL is database software. Review documents, soften up an email or to ask for a summary of information. Notes, a lot of people use the AI to go to a meeting for them, right? And take notes. Data management and analysis. Ooh, I'm so sorry. I clicked the button and it went ahead. All right, draft correspondence. These are great responses. So we've got folks who are using it for all different kinds of things. So that's terrific. So we're going to talk a little bit about what is AI and how it's predictive rather than a search engine, right? And it generates things for us. We saw in your responses, it's generating documents or notes for you, not just looking up the answer to a question that you have. So, Evan, one thing I had a question about is, have we already seen, before all of the AI came on the scene, have we already seen AI in use? Like when I was doing spell check or maybe talking to my smart speaker, or it finishes my sentence. Is that AI?
Sure, sure. So that raises a really interesting point, Christine. Thank you for asking that about where AI actually starts. A lot of times we coin it in the last few years because we've been talking about it in these last few years since ChatGPT and others like it came out. But the foundational technology has existed actually for decades. The first time AI is coined is actually in the 1950s during what we call the Dartmouth Conference. But for everyday users, some of the early ways we started seeing AI introduced in the work we do is things like spell checkers, machine learning models, essentially things that leverage patterns in order to create some semblance of intelligence. This isn't the same as the true contextual understanding that you all have, the way you can think critically about an idea and evaluate it. This is just repeating something that has been seen before. But for things like language, for example, it can be very helpful. It can tell when something is grammatically wrong because it hasn't seen that in previous writing, and maybe it's seeing a misspelling of sorts. And if we scale that up, we oftentimes get to where we are today using things like what we call deep learning models and large language models that essentially just take that pattern recognition to the next level. It's understanding patterns from across the internet, understanding patterns even within the nuance, not just yes or no, but is there maybe an in-between there? And so oftentimes when we're talking about AI, while it feels like we're talking about the current AI where we talk to it, it feels like it knows a ton, but also knows very little. A lot of that goes back to that pattern-based approach, which we're going to explore today. But I think it's really important for everyone to recognize that these things are really just good at parroting previous patterns.
And tell me a little bit about people and humans' interaction with it and the expertise that we bring to it.
Right. There's been a lot of concern, obviously, in this last few years about the role of AI within different fields of both study and actual areas of work. Will it be replacing humans or whatnot? And I will say one of the really important things that we try to really emphasize is that, well, AI certainly does prove to have some benefits for tedious, repetitive work that can be well defined into a pattern. There is still a lot of need for expertise. These models don't carry that expertise themselves. They just repeat what's been said before. And while that can be good to get some general best practice established for the up-to-date spaces, especially those that require a lot of nuance, we need experts who know what they're talking about. A great example I always like to highlight is our researchers down at Tampa General in downtown Tampa. They utilize AI within their emergency medicine unit. However, they don't necessarily just deploy the AI's responses as treatment plans. They put a doctor in between the AI and the human being there. And so a doctor who knows what they're doing, have been working in that field, understand the nuance of these studies that these AIs are often reading, can typically come in and intervene with any necessary adjustments. And that's a key difference. And that's why when we're talking about AI, especially in this session today and going forward, we don't want to think of it as something that's replacing humans. We want it to complement our work and make sure that the end result that we're putting out is something that we can defend as a human being. We still need people who can audit that, evaluate that appropriately for human usage.
Right. It seems like AI gives us that opportunity to just explore expertise in a field we may not have in a very short period of time. But the human is still the one that's coming up with ideas that's they want to explore, but they are the ones that have the expertise and have to verify what AI is doing. So we're going to talk a little bit about that too.
So something I want to
sorry, Evan, you can tell us a little bit about it being predictive.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mentioned this before that these models are pattern-based by nature, and this is a really important distinction. Previously, when you would go on something like Google, for example, and you would put in your search through Google, you should get the same results almost every time. This is what we typically call a deterministic model. The idea here is that you put in this input and you're always going to get this output. AI works a little differently. AI utilizes what we call a probabilistic approach. Now, this can be really helpful. It thinks differently than how we've been working before, but it also brings its own risks. Below in this visualization, you will see an example of one such model. This is a pathfinding algorithm called A*. It is used within navigation and traffic coordination. And you can see here it is routing itself through the city of Chicago. Now, while it ultimately finds its way from point A to point B, and you guys can see it makes it, that initial go through is actually really inefficient. It spreads itself all across Chicago, just looking for what could be possibly the most efficient way. And a lot of times it's going to get it wrong. It's not going to pick a highway. It may pick an alternate side street, and you can see some paths that are frankly even going in the wrong direction. This is key to understanding AI. A lot of times when we're utilizing these, it's hoping to find the best pattern possible. And while we can give it some sort of reference points and grounding to help drive it in the right direction, and more information is always really helpful here, ultimately it's doing a lot of guessing. Now, that can be dangerous if we were using it to treat patients in a hospital, but if we were looking at, for example, what is the most efficient out of all of the possibilities out there, this is a great way to explore that. And many people are using these tools as a result to use it for things like brainstorming, pathfinding at that rate, basically thinking outside of the box, considering all the possibilities instead of just the one you set it on. This is where we're seeing both researchers as well as professionals really benefit from AI, whether it's coming up with different phrasings, whether it is proposing new ideas, considering what's out there maybe that you hadn't considered yourself. But ultimately, when we find a final kind of approach we want to utilize, really locking it in and maybe even taking AI out of it once we've determined what works best for us. This is a really important thing to note because not only is this being utilized in transportation, but this foundational idea of a probabilistic approach is key to every AI model that is out there right now and both holds it back and sets it forward in ways that traditional methods weren't doing.
Awesome. So let's look at a little bit of the most popular AI tools. Now, I think we all know there's tons of AI tools out there that are some that are very generic, like the ones that we have listed here. There's also some that are just very specialized in their field. So I just wanted to go through a few of these real quick. ChatGPT, I always have trouble saying that, is basically the OG. That's the one that really started it all. It's been around the longest for just consumer consumption. So once you can get in there and get a great result. Now, people go to Microsoft often because they already are using the Microsoft suite, especially in work. And so that can integrate with what you're already using. Same thing for Google. A lot of people use the Google tools. And so that's something that they can integrate, for example, with their emails or even their cloud storage. Perplexity is used mostly for business. And Grok, while it has a lot of the same features, has a feature where you can bat ideas back and forth and have a conversation with Grok and even give it choose one of its personalities.
It's important to note. Sorry,
go
go
ahead.
ahead. Oh, I was going to say that it's important to note, though, that these models range drastically. While many of them fill similar voids of being generalist AIs that can help you with all tasks in some regard, even the models themselves that are available from one platform, so for example, ChatGPT, the difference between a free version and a paid version is actually pretty substantial. There is some differences there about the different tools, the amount of questions you can ask or prompts you can raise with these tools. And it's important to note that while many offer a free version, most run a standard paid tier around $15 to $20. Sometimes they get a little bit above that, but that tends to be where we're seeing those. I will note that, and we're going to talk about this in the data privacy section of today's session, but some institutions and or offices might already have an AI provided to you. And your institution may provide that AI on purpose so that you run all of your enterprise work content through that and it is secure. That is an important thing to note. That is, as we're pulling things out of secure environments, we're opening up risks to third parties. We'll talk about that here in a little bit, but keep that in mind that you might already actually have a free AI available to you. There are some restrictions. Free models and even certain models compared to others might have different restrictions on message limits. For example, I pay for Claude. Claude still puts a cap on how many messages I can do per day. And depending on how intense those are, what I'm asking it to do, it might even limit that even further. Sometimes you're working with older models. You might think you're working with ChatGPT, but if you're using a free version, you might be using an older ChatGPT model. That isn't to say it's not capable, but it does mean that there might be some features that your friend may have that you may not be able to take advantage of. It's important to keep this in mind because depending on which version you're utilizing, what plan you're paying for, this totally changes the AI space you're working in and how useful it could be for you. The paid models typically have access to faster models, longer context, which is really big if you're doing bulk data review. So if you're looking at hundreds of spreadsheets, you're going to want a model that has access for that. There's also some priority access during high peak times, as well as when new features are rolled out that come with these paid models. This isn't to say you have to pay for AI, but I will note we're seeing less and less quality free versions and more quality premium versions, ones that you do have to pay for. Hopefully long-term, more and more institutions and offices will understand this is an essential thing to have in your workspace, but keep that in mind. Early on, you may be adopting all on your own, and there is a cost with that. Now, I wanted to highlight a couple different tool sets. This isn't all-encompassing by any means, but as somebody who works within civil engineering and transportation-related fields at USF, I oftentimes see some of these platforms pop up within the research that's happening. These are tool sets that aren't as necessarily trendy and fresh-sounding. Some of them may even have existed prior to ChatGPT coming out. The big thing here is that these are oftentimes using those foundational AI technologies like machine learning, navigational tools, in order to essentially give you more information off the data you already have. For example, Replica is a travel demand modeler. It does corridor planning, equity analysis, basically to better understand as you're developing infrastructure and roadways, how that is playing into the local communities. Streetlight data does it kind of in a different sense. It's all about how traffic is flowing across a specific area. It taps into certain key databases in order to pull that information. And then finally is Blinksy, which is probably the most AI focused of these three here. It is specifically something that is detecting roadway hazards from dash cam footage. It is utilized by state departments of transportation. I don't know specifically if Florida is using it at this time, but you guys can start to see that AI is already very much part of the transportation space. While you might have some general productivity AIs that you use like Claude and Copilot and ChatGPT, there are tons out there for you to consider that might be just less marketed as a modern AI and more so as something that is a tried and true technology for transportation professionals.
So now that we've confounded the space with lots and lots of models, I just want to say our tips to you is don't get stuck comparing all the models, right? Because you'll just spend all this time trying all the different models and which one is the best. And we're going to see that there are so many that are available to you and they work basically the same. So our advice to you is just pick one tool and just start using it. Get used to using it and figure out what you can use it for. If you don't like that one after a while, switch to another one. So I wanted to go ahead and stop and show you how similar these different models are in the ones that we were showing you listing earlier. Okay, so here the first one is ChatGPT, and you can see this. It looks just like your internet browser where you're going to type something in to search. So this is the commonality. They all have this, and you can hit the plus button if you want to add files or other things. You can see down here you've got some suggestions. A lot of them do that. They have suggestions for what you want to try. You can also use the dictate or the voice feature. A lot of them have that. And a lot of them have on the side and the column here what you've requested before. So you can go back if you did something last week and you're like, I want to pick up where I left off. You can go into that one and see where you left off. It's got file usage, organization tools over here as well. So if we go on to Gemini, hey, look, it's pretty much the same. So you've got your search bar, as it were, where we're going to put our prompt. You've got your plus button. You can use your dictate, your microphone. Here's your suggestions. Again, organization stuff here on the side. Copilot. Hey, looks the same. So my point is you don't have to be wary of trying one or another. Just pick one and you'll have an opportunity to practice over and over again. Perplexity, you can see, has more business of focus, and then Grok. So just wanted to show you that real quick. And we're going to go back to our PowerPoint. So you had listed when at the beginning some of the ways that you had used AI before. And so while this is no way an exhaustive list, these are just some ideas that we came up with of ways that you could use AI. And so pretty much a lot of us have used it to write and edit emails. Maybe I've written an email and I want to make it sound more casual or more professional. I just want to clean it up and make it clarify. Also to write documents or edit documents. It's also great for project startups. We've got an idea. Our team is coming up with a new project. Give us some ideas. Help us generate some ideas. Also help to find funding. Who doesn't need more funding? So you can ask it to go out and search for funding that has to do with your own topic. What kind of grants are out there, request for proposals, and see what you would qualify specifically for. Also to help you write reports, grants, presentations, PowerPoints, case studies, summarize documents. Maybe you get a 100-page PDF and you're like, I don't have time to read this. Create an executive summary for me, maybe 1 page or bullet points. Give me the top 5 bullet points. It also can help you troubleshoot problems. I've done that so many times. I run into a problem with an app I don't know, or a problem with something on my computer that's not working. I ask the AI to help me figure it out, and sure enough, it does help me. It's also great to help us automate those workflow or repetitive tasks that we're doing over and over again. And it's great for researching and analyzing, in this case, specific travel behavior or program data. Maybe we've got some research data that we've generated at our organization, and we want to help present that. It's also great for outreach and engagement with our customers. Maybe you want to create a marketing campaign, some images or videos. And then when you're done at the end of your program, maybe you want an evaluation of how it went, how you can improve. So do you guys have any other things that you can think of? You can go ahead and put in the chat. And this could be either things that you've used it for, or things you just thought of, oh, I never thought about using it that way. Maybe that would be something. So a new idea of a way to use it. So I have image generation, a marketing video. SOPs, standard operating procedure. All right, while those are coming in, Evan, could you tell us a little bit about the risks of using AI?
Absolutely, absolutely. So there are a couple specific ones tied within the AI space. A couple specific ones I want to really focus in on. First and foremost, ties back to that pattern-based approach we were talking about before. Because we're using patterns and not true contextual understanding, it means that these models oftentimes speak about things that they have no right really speaking about. They're guessing at best, and if they're not equipped with the right patterns, especially if it's something that is very specific, something that is maybe outside of what the general internet knows about, which is primarily what these models train off of, it's and sometimes just make up things in the process, especially if it has any conflicting information. This gets particularly bad. So we oftentimes see two different types of what we call hallucinations. This is when the AI confidently says something is correct, and really maybe there's some more nuance to it. The first type is total fabrications. We saw this early on more so than we do nowadays, but it still happens where certain stats are invented, studies, citations, maybe even supporting evidence for something. And this, especially if you are providing this to stakeholders, if you're providing it to community members, you want to make sure it's up to speed, that it's not making up something, that something can't be checked and said this isn't even real. This has happened to the best out there. There have been lawyers in courtrooms who have been exposed for bringing hallucinated content to the judge. This has been happening, unfortunately, even in the federal level with some government agencies. So it is really important to note that any one piece of content generated by AI, we have to be able to double check it. The other big thing here is overgeneralization. Sometimes people will say, well, no, hey, everything this AI is generating is built off of the documents I provided it. And that's totally fair. That helps it ground itself a lot better. But one thing that we run into is a risk for generalization. Sometimes you'll have conflicting ideas. Maybe it isn't all consistently woven as a narrative. And these AIs will lean into something a little too heavily. It'll focus in on a certain talking point. It'll ignore something else. And as a result, you may lose out on some of the nuance that was within that document, especially if you're looking at survey data, any qualitative content that you're getting from participants of any sort. If you're having it review lengthy text documents, oftentimes these models don't have the capacity to read them in full, and so they're going to cut corners and just look at the highest, what it believes are most relevant pieces of content to what you're asking about. So keep that in mind. It requires you to be an expert, at least to a certain degree, with whatever material you're having an AI help you with, so that you can call out when it's hallucinating. If you don't feel confident enough about a subject matter to be able to call out the AI when something was wrong, that is going to get you in trouble by trying to lean on it too heavily in an area you don't have the expertise for. As a result, we also try to emphasize the over-reliance of AI. These models don't know your communities. They don't know the work you do. They aren't going to be able to replace you in the current critical thinking sense. We want to make sure that you stay adaptable and dynamic in that space, and we don't want to just offload a bunch of our work off to these AI models without being for good reason. There are certain tasks that it's totally valid to consider, especially repetitive tasks that don't require a lot of nuance. But for a lot of your work, I'm sure there are many parts where we need the exact individual who's in that role to be doing that role. So make sure not to lean on these tools that's too heavily. And lastly, and I talked about this before, is the data privacy end. Well, there are a lot of great AI models out there. Unfortunately, many of them are marketed to us as individuals first, and not necessarily through our institutions or organizations, and brought in by IT units and professionals above us. This is really gets us into some dicey territory because people have been utilizing models like ChatGPT, Claude, and others in order to do their work day to day. Unfortunately, if you're introducing anything that is protected data, whether that is HIPAA, FERPA data, or more specifically for or our work in state, stuff that is maybe confidential information, stuff that shouldn't be shared out with third parties. We do not want to be sharing that with just any one AI. That is why oftentimes you're seeing different organizations offer their own AI that is secure. So here at USF, we use Copilot because it's part of Microsoft and we're already Microsoft compliant and protected. But you might have a specific one that works for you. If you don't have one that is clearly defined for you, what I would encourage you to do is to talk with your supervisor and or your IT department to say, hey, what is our current policy on AI usage? Is there a certain one you guys would like us to be using? Can I bring in my own? And if I do, what limitations should I place on my usage with it? Should I not use it for certain projects or should I use it for other projects? Just some important stuff to keep in mind because this is stuff that an AI company isn't going to advertise to you. It's something that we as professionals have to stay ahead of. And while different organizations and institutions kind of find their own policies, it's important to just have an open conversation about where it's fitting into your workflow.
Right. And I do want to mention for those who are involved or work for FDOT, we do have a link that we're going to give to you later on that does outline the FDOT AI policy. So that should be helpful for those. I'm going to share. Let me get that queued up.
Most people talk to AI like it's a person, and that's a huge mistake. Why? Because the generative AI systems like ChatGPT don't actually understand our language. They predict it, and that's where most people get stuck. If I said, Humpty Dumpty sat on a, your brain's gonna fire wall. You knew what was coming. Your brain predicted it. You could have said, Humpty Dumpty sat on a roof. Now it's accurate, but you knew wall was more likely based on what you've seen before. Think about Google search. It does autocomplete the same way. Why? Because it has seen so many search queries before, it has learned from it, and now is giving you the most likely option. AI models like ChatGPT or Gemini work in a similar fashion, but they're different than search engines because they don't store any pre-baked answers. They generate the answer on the fly. How do they generate it? Like at a very high level, AI breaks your text into smaller parts called tokens. Each token is a word or sometimes a part of a word. Humpty is probably one token. Dumpty could be another token. Sat, another token. Wall, another token. Then AI converts each token into a list of numbers, also known as multidimensional vectors. Those numbers are placed inside a massive mathematical space called an embedding space. And in that massive space, similar ideas tend to live closer together. The system has learned from previous experiences, so it knows that the word Humpty, egg, wall, and fall will be closer. But they're going to be far from words like motorcycle or chocolate. Now, when it's time to generate the answer, AI looks at the context and predicts the most likely next token. So when it sees Humpty Dumpty had a great, it weighs all the options. Humpty Dumpty had a great party, Humpty Dumpty had a great day, Humpty Dumpty had a great chocolate, and it sees that the word fall is the most likely outcome. So the line is generated and finished, not from memory, not from stored facts, but from probability and proximity. That's why AI can feel so smart, but also so alien. Now, I'm skipping a lot of details here, but the important takeaway here is that when your prompt is vague, this guessing machine called ChatGPT or Gemini will produce guesses that are also vague. And if your prompt is sharp and targeted, AI will come back to you with sharp and targeted guesses. That's what I call machine English. It helps AI to compute your intent, not just try to comprehend it.
So that leads us into our prompt generation. We want to learn how to tell AI what we are looking for, give it a task to do. So we're going to go through that. I did want to mention, Andreas said that they often ask AI to give them the references. What's the URL? Where did you get this information from? That's a very good point. We're going to talk about that. We want to know the source of the information that their AI is giving us. So what we want to do is have an excellent prompt to give AI so we can get excellent answers back. So we've broken this down into 4 pieces. That is the role, that's the who. Who do we want AI to be? What kind of expert is this AI? And we want to give it the task. This is what most people start with. Edit this document for me and make it sound more clear. And then that's it. That's all they put in. Context is which. That is, yes, we want you to do this task, but is it specific to a person, a group of people, a location, maybe your county or city? Does it include data you've already got and you're uploading? So it's the context in which you want that task done. And then lastly is the output. How? How do I want this presented to me? Do I want an executive summary? Do I want an image? Do I want a visualization? So you have to tell AI, how do I want that output back? So let's take a look at an example. So first, your role would be, you are a transportation planner. Now you've told AI what the mindset, right? Mindset of the AI is. So I'm putting on my transportation planner hat and I want a task to be completed. Suggest strategies to reduce congestion. That's the task I want it to do. But let's give it some more context. Well, if that's pretty broad, just reduce congestion. How about in a mid-sized city or in my city? I would list my city there. And then how do I want that output to come out? I want it in bullet points with explanations. So obviously you can change this for whatever you're looking for. So I've got 3 different examples here. And again, these are going to be in your handout that you'll get after class. So don't feel like you have to write all this down or put it in your memory. So I just want to go through real quick just so you understand the flow of it. And these are examples that you would use as a transportation professional. So the first one is the role. You are an expert at researching transportation data and creating understandable summaries. Well, it sounds like we're flattering the AI, but we want the AI to be the best at whatever task that we're asking it to do. So of course we're going to say you're the expert, you have expertise in this area, so that is doing the best job possible. Next is our task. Find recent research findings or case studies from 2020 or later, so very specific, just that time frame, about the use of van pools, including costs, trends of usage, and expected outlook. Very specific. And then our context. We are trying to increase van pooling in the state of Florida, very specific. And we want to share that information with high-level executives and political leaders. So now AI knows, okay, I need to develop information for that audience. And then the output. Create an executive summary of no more than 2 pages that describes the most recent research findings about the growth of van pools in the state of Florida and list your sources. So this is back to Andre's comment is you want to ask it for the sources so that you can double check. Our second example. First, the role. You are an expert at marketing road safety to teenagers. So we're already narrowing it down. We want the AI to be a marketing specialist, but not just any marketing specialist, one that appeals to teenagers and is going to look at road safety. The task is to create a marketing campaign targeted to males age 16 to 18 who drive a vehicle. Our context, we are trying to influence male teenage drivers in Florida to avoid distractions while driving. And then our output, the campaign should include social media posts, images, and videos to appeal to that age group. Suggest any other campaign materials that would be useful. So you don't have to always have all the answers. You can say, and go ahead and suggest something else, something outside the box, something I haven't thought of. And the other thing that's important is you can continue to go back and forth. Yes, I like this image, but add more, color, or make it animated, or use real life images. And our third prompt example is, you are an expert at finding grants in the area of transportation. So that's the role. Task is look for grants or requests for proposals about road safety, including vehicles, pedestrians, and bicyclists. And we are looking for funding in the area of transportation safety in the state of Florida. So see how it's very specific. And the output lists the top 10 grants or funding opportunities, ranking them by likelihood our organization would qualify. And that's takes for granted that the AI knows what organization you're in. You've already put in information that tells it about your organization. If you haven't, you could put in information in the prompt and either upload information about your organization or even send it to maybe your organization's website. And be sure to list the deadline dates for application. So next, I said this is going to be interactive, so I'd like you to go to your browser and open up one of your AI tools. You can choose one of the ones that we listed, or you can pick one that you like. And we're going to compare a good prompt from a bad prompt. So we learned the 4 aspects: the role, task, context, and output. So let's find what happens if we write a very vague prompt. So I want you to, in your AI tool, write about commuter benefits. That's all I want you to type in. And then I want you to see what comes up, look at it briefly, and we're going to discuss it. And while you're doing that, I'm going to pull my results up so you can see what I got. And then we'll talk about it.
Christine, just for some context, which AI did you use? You used Copilot for this, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I have two examples. So this one I use Copilot, and the next one I use ChatGPT. Just because I wanted to have different tools, not to show any, and I wanted to point out that in this course, we don't have any preference, and we're not endorsing any AI tool. We're telling you about some that are the most common out there, and you can choose which one you want to use. All right, so if you've got some results from your AI search, go ahead and put a message in the chat box, or feel free to turn on your camera and mic and say hello and tell us what you think you got in your results and how you feel about what your results brought up. And Breton said you may be restricted by your agency, which one you can use. Yes. That's Evan was talking a little bit about check with your IT department. Yeah, so Brennan got a long explanation and very detailed. And Evan's got a pretty generic response. Yeah, very informative, but no sources. So I'm going to go through this real quick for you and tell you again here, what are commuter benefits? How do they work? What's eligible? Very generic, very informative. If you didn't know what it was, it would be good, right? Here's the second page of my results and why they matter, what's their impact. So yeah, very generic, but it got the job done. It did what I asked, right? So next, we're going to put in a more detailed prompt. So I'm going to put this text in the chat box so you can cut and paste it and put it in your browser. There you go. So I'm going to read through it as you cut and paste just to give you highlights of what we've done. So you are a transportation and commuter benefits expert. Again, the role. We're telling it is an expert in this field. And then the task, write a one-page overview explaining commuter benefits programs to who? HR managers at mid-sized companies, very specific. You want to increase the awareness and participation of employers in offering benefits to employees in Florida, very specific for Florida. And include 3 business benefits, 1 statistic supporting each benefit, and a short call to action encouraging employers to implement them. So that is the output. I want 3 business benefits. I don't want a whole, 12 pages. I just want 3. And then I want a statistic for each, because I know HR managers, if they're going to present it to their leadership, are going to want some statistics to back that up. So if you guys have already got some results from that, go ahead and let me know what you think, if you got more specific results. And I did mine in ChatGPT for this one. And you can see it's pretty much the same, right? It's what are commuter benefits, why offer them, but it's targeted it for the people that I asked for, which were HR leaders in Florida at mid-sized employers in Florida. And you can see here it's got 3 points and a statistic for each one. And here's the second page. Again, here's my third point, a statistic, why it matters in Florida. So before it said, why did it matter? Now it says, why did it matter in Florida? And it lists Miami, Orlando, Tampa. And then it has a call to action for those HR managers. Yes, so Brendan, that's a good point. He said that it gave me the statistics, but no backup references because I didn't ask for any. So if you want some backup references, say list your sources, list your references, give me the URL for your sources.
Something to note real quick, sometimes folks will ask for citations or evidence after the fact with an AI model, and it's important to note that many of these models will pull from their black boxes first, and then if you ask them for evidence or a citation or something to back it up, they'll go out and find something brand new in the process. So try to make sure to ask for those links, and especially from credible sources if you have some that you can recommend towards it. That certainly helps a ton, but have it point in the right directions from the get-go and not after the fact.
That's a great point. So I just wanted to reiterate it. Since I asked for these things, it gave it to me, the HR managers, the statistics, specific just to Florida, and a call to action. So let's try another one. Now you're going to create the prompt all by yourself. So here's a guide for something to ask for. You're a transportation planner advising leaders in your local area. So you may even say in Tampa or in Orlando rather than local area. And you want some ideas to reduce congestion without building new roads. And you want to present these ideas to your city leaders. You may have some city leaders in mind or a specific office that you want to present to. So go ahead and create your own prompt. We'll give you a few minutes to do that. And be sure to include role, task, context, and output. I'll show you what I did for this one while you are typing that in. And then after you get that, some results, I'd love to see in the chat what you received, and if you're happy with what you got. And I hear people asking a lot about sources and reference. Go ahead and put that in this one and see if it what kind of references it gives you.
Some of you might have access to, while we're waiting, some of you might have access to models that have additional functionality. For example, they might be a planner. They might have a planner like subfunction or a deep research mode. For this task, you can just use it as is. But if you have access to those, that might be worthwhile. Adding an extra thing that isn't part of your prompt, but something that you're encouraging the AI to lean into a little bit more from the back end, oftentimes can help a lot. I have a lot of researchers, for example, at USF, who, when they want to take on a power research project, they don't just use the base model. They use the deep research version of it. A lot of times it's just a click down from that plus on most of those AI models, but keep that in mind. You might have access to some cool functionality that isn't just based out of typing to it.
Awesome. Great suggestion. So I will tell you what I put in my prompt, just based on that information there. My role was the AI is an expert transportation planner in Hillsborough County with many years of experience. I want it to search for strategies of other U.S. cities with similar population to Hillsborough County and use those strategies to help reduce congestion. And I want it to brainstorm ways to reduce congestion without building new roads in Hillsborough County. And the output is create a list of 5 strategies, explain how it worked, and list the cities that successfully implemented it. Also, be creative and develop another strategy that's thinking out of the box. So do we have any results yet from you guys who are typing it into your AI? I think for the sake of time, let's go ahead. We'll keep an eye on the chat and look for your answers. But I think we have a third one to go into here. Evan, can you tell me about this one?
Yeah, absolutely. So for our final example, we're going to specifically look at data specifically here, how it can be a total aid to data analysis, data visualization, and content like that. And so within this prompt, you guys are welcome to build out your own, but I want to show you guys as well the one we built custom based off of our prompt guidance so far. But specifically, we're having you be a transportation data analysis or analyst, and you're leveraging survey data. We have a specific data set that I am going to be utilizing here, but you could theoretically ask your model to pull together some openly accessible data. If you have any within your own repository, you can utilize that and identify across the Tampa Bay region key trends that you're seeing across those commuters and prepare an accessible visual of those trends for a report. There's a couple different tangents here we're pulling across here. And so when you see us go into the engineered prompt, we're putting it in the role of a transportation data analyst specializing in urban and suburban commuter behavior in Florida metro regions. This goes all the way back to where our output's at, making sure that whatever we're having the AI set itself up for, they're positioning it exactly to the role that the deliverable would be based out of anyways. So if there's somebody who you think would be a contact anyways, trying to frame them as that contact helps a lot. From there, we're identifying a task, and this isn't just identifying key trends anymore. This is specifically looking at the data set, the kind of distributions we want, the relationships we want. We're specifically telling it how many takeaways even, and that can sometimes even help it just to keep it framed a little bit better. It's important, though, as we introduce materials and grounding documents to these AI models, maybe it's a web page, maybe it's a document that you're providing it. In this case, it's going to be a data set, that we give it some context about what that data set is. Oftentimes, these models will create patterns and understandings of what that item is anyways, but if you can provide a little bit of extra nuance, it can help it better understand what it's working with so that it draws the correct conclusions instead of looking out into a, like a generalized grouping of patterns and hoping to find the right solution there. Ultimately, finally, we're going to recognize a clean output. We want something that is an accessible visualization suitable for inclusion in a regional transport report. We want it to be accessible to everyone, though. We don't just want it for just researchers. We don't just want data analysis folks. We want folks who are totally outside of the data space to be able to read and recognize this. And so, Christine, as we go to our final slide here for this demo, I want to show you guys what I got out of my model Claude. I used this exact same prompt in that previous slide, and you guys can see that it's built out this really lovely visualization that is using a range of this data and didn't require even any fine tuning. So if you were to bring in some fine tuning, you could get this exactly where you wanted it using different visualizations, maybe leaning into different data, and ultimately just making it accessible. You could quickly ask this to change colors, focus on different fields, and even recommend some different visualizations that might better fit the type of presentation you're trying to do. So keep that in mind, is that many of these models are very capable in this end, and this is a huge barrier typically for many people with Excel and other visualization tools, and this is doing a lot of it for you, and it's not changing the data in any way in the process because it is looking at your data set.
That was amazing. I love that. It turned out great. So now that we've been able to try different ways to put our quality prompt into AI and see the results, we also want to check the output. We've talked about this a lot already, Evan, but we want to be able to check AI, make sure those results are accurate. So we want to check our assumptions that the AI tool made. If you think it's using any kind of assumption, you can actually ask AI, what assumptions did you make? List them out. Tell us, list them by confidence. We talked a lot about the sources. You can ask AI to validate those sources, to cite 2 independent sources for each claim that you made. You can also cross-check the models. You can take the prompt that you put and put it in 2 different AI tools and see what comes out. You can also take the result from one and put it in the other and say, evaluate this and tell me if this is valid. So you can use AI to check AI.
It's important. One thing I'll just kind of add here, Christine, that I think is really important as we're going through all of this workshop, it kind of feels like you could use AI for anything. And I think the important thing to note from here is that there are some moments where AI can send you in the wrong direction. It's not trying to, it's just part of its nature as a pattern-based approach. And so it's important that for any one project you use AI on, this doesn't mean this could be anything from image generation to text generation to brainstorming and everything in between. If you don't feel like you could have done that without the AI, if you don't feel like you could have audited it, reviewed that content, and understood it the same way, oftentimes we try to recommend people don't use AI for that. It's not something that you can defend to somebody else. It's going to be something where you're going to have to say, I use an AI for it. I don't really understand how it works. And that's not what we ultimately want. Now, it's great to use AI to upskill ourselves so that we do feel confident in having that model explain what it went through to do something. But keep that in mind. If you're putting it into any task areas that you couldn't do on your own, you're starting to get into some dicey territory. Even for something like data visualization, like I showed a few minutes ago, if I can't defend the data behind that visualization and the methods that would have gone about building it, I'm getting myself into trouble a little bit there. So keep that in mind, that if you don't feel confident doing it yourself, don't bring it to an AI quite yet.
Awesome. And then we talked about being able to check the results. Now, how do we improve our results? A lot of times people say, well, yeah, that just sounds like AI. They read the email or the document and they're like, oh, AI wrote this. You want it to improve to sound more like you. And that comes through use over and over and over again, and it gets to learn your voice. But you've got to be specific with it and ask it for exactly for what you're looking for. Make it more customized. That will help improve your results. Also, you can push AI and ask it for more evidence, ask it for stronger insight, ask it for things that are outside the box that nobody's ever heard of. You can ask it to push the limits. So our final takeaways, and Evan, I'd love for you to chime in here too, is AI is a tool, right? It is not a replacement for those experts in the field. And like Evan said, you want to be able to do it yourself and then be able to defend the results that you get. Prompt quality matters. We had an opportunity to look at 2 different prompts, one that was very basic and one that was very specific, and then we saw the difference between the 2. And we gave you a pattern to use with role, task, context, and output that you can use. And also go ahead and start small, experiment, try different things, see what kind of results you can get, iterate, make it better and better every time you ask for something. So ask for something you never thought of. Ask AI, what did I not think of? Right? So it's going to help you do all of those things.
Absolutely. And something, Christine, I would just add here is that we have to keep in mind that we're all part of this like changing technology space. As you're learning more about your technologies and your AI models, be sure to write it down. If you have especially a really good prompt that you're going to reuse in the future, save that, share it with colleagues, talk about what went well and what didn't go well. So many of us are in the same sort of boat of trying to figure this technology out, and we're actually able to kind of carve out and shape how we're going to use it going forward, depending on what we're doing today in our workplaces. So keep that in mind, and be sure to chat with a colleague about what you've learned here today, and you're going to continue to learn.
And then we're going to send you home with some tools. And so we've got a PDF for you that has the AI prompt formula that we discussed with some examples, as well as 10 examples of transportation specific AI prompts. Hopefully give you some ideas and some different ways of thinking of to use AI. Also the list of AI terms. If you want to know a few more terms we didn't cover, there's a vast amount of information about AI that we did not cover. So hopefully those AI terms can help you in that respect. And then, as I said, we also have in the take-home tools a link to go to the FDOT AI policy. So hopefully that would be helpful for you as well. And then we would love for you to complete our short evaluation. You can go to this link at the SurveyMonkey and fill that out for us. That would be very helpful to us to know how we are doing and if we're able to communicate our topic effectively. So again, you can use your phone to do the QR code. Hopefully that one works. And I also put the link in the chat. Brennan, you are very welcome. And then I wanted to bring to your attention our next workforce development course. Again, these are free. All you have to do is register. It's coming up on June 4th, and it will be mobility on demand. We have 2 excellent guest speakers that will be there for that. And again, you can get your phone out and do the QR code to register for that. I'll put the link in the chat as well. And so all of the webinars are at this link. You can go and you can click all of them and register for all of them all at once. And so that would be terrific. And we appreciate your spending time with us this afternoon, and hopefully this was helpful. And Evan, thank you so much for your expertise.
Absolutely.
Really
Thanks so much, everybody.